To better understand the tensions between Venezuelan legislators and President Nicolas Maduro, I'm joined by Juan Carlos Hidalgo. He's a Latin American policy analyst at the CATO Institute. That's a libertarian think tank here in Washington, and we want to thank you for joining us. I think Stephen Gibbs really set the stage there for us. It's really a powder keg. How do you see things moving forward?
Indeed. Unfortunately, the last word still lies with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is fully controlled by the government. The government made sure that they appointed over 2,000 new justices before the new National Assembly was sworn in. So they made sure that the Supreme Court was going to be fully under their control. The Constitution says that even if the National Assembly has a two-thirds majority by the opposition, the president can still submit legislation prior to its enactment to the Supreme Court to rule whether it is constitutional or not. That set the stage for the Supreme Court to be the ultimate arbiter in this power cake, and unfortunately the Supreme Court is a player for the government.
And it's interesting, Maduro, obviously the election is set back, but he took that time before these guys got their seats to make sure he did exactly what you said. It's interesting, the Secretary General of the Organization of American States, talking about the Supreme Court ruling about these 3 opposition deputies, he said it was a direct blow to the will of the voters. Is that likely to have any kind of impact? The outsiders coming in, the rhetoric, is that going to influence the Maduro government in any way?
I think it helps. 2 years ago, all the region, including the OAS, the Organization of American States, were in the pockets of the government, of the Venezuelan government. They either remained silent or they were actively supportive of President Maduro. Now we have more critical voices out there, starting with Secretary General Almagro in the OAS. He's been very assertive in the last few months, pointing out at the way that the government abuses the rules of the electoral system in Venezuela, and now how the Supreme Court is trying to subvert the results of the legislative elections. Also, we have out there President Macri in Argentina, the new Argentinian president. He's very critical of the Venezuelan government. I think that more voices will be joined in the next few months in Latin America, pointing out what's going on in Venezuela, which is a new development, and I think that's going to help the situation over there.
Speaking of new developments, one headline I read today, oil prices dive again. We know that that is Venezuela's lifeblood, and they've been really impacted by the drop in oil prices. If you were to expand this out further, I mean, looking at the political landscape, we're seeing a lot, but then from an economic standpoint, this is a country that's really suffering, and the people are suffering. Talk to me about that.
It's a country in meltdown. Venezuela has due payments for 2016 in the range of $10 billion, $10 billion, whereas the reserves, according to what we know, for what we can see, the oil prices mean that they will get $16 billion according to the current oil prices. And then they have to pay salaries, they have to pay all the social programs, they have to pay all the other money that the government has to spend on issues. So that means that the government is in serious trouble regarding these economics. It's a country in meltdown, triple-digit inflation, widespread shortages, and we cannot see a happy ending to this picture, at least in 2016.
Juan, you watch this area, you watch this country quite a bit. What are you looking for in the next few weeks? What are you going to keep your eye on?
I'm gonna keep a look at how the government is trying to wrest powers from the National Assembly, and what the reaction is going to be from the international community. We know for a fact that we're not dealing here with Democrats. This is not people that go to bed reading Montesquieu and the virtues of separation of powers. They are fond on diminishing the powers of the National Assembly. So we will want to see how they're going to proceed and what the reaction of the international community will be. I know for a fact that this is not going to end by Maduro just, giving power to a democratically elected successor. This is going to end in a very bad way, unfortunately.
Juan Carlos Hidalgo, unfortunately, I have a feeling you're probably right. Thanks so much.